Welcome tonight. This is League of Women Voters ABC, and we're here today to talk about water resources, the next steps for water supply and environmental integrity. I'm Gretchen Sabel. I'm the program chair for ABC League of Women Voters, and I'm very happy to be working with QCTV tonight to film this as well, and to have our studio audience here. Thank you. Everybody's welcome to join League. I think that's something that might be a little confusing some because we're the League of Women Voters, but we certainly welcome men as well. The mission of League is that League is a grassroots organization that encourages informed and active participation in government and influences public policy through education and advocacy. So this is an example of an education program tonight. We're here to learn about what's happening with groundwater and other water resources and to have the tools we need for further advocacy. Another thing about League is that we don't support any candidate or political party. We're a neutral, objective organization that brings quality information to the public. That's our goal, so that's what we're trying to do tonight. Tonight, like I said, we're going to be talking about water resources, and our speakers that we have tonight are going to inform us about what's being done today to protect and preserve water, especially groundwater, in our area. Our area, of course, being kind of northern Anoka County and western northern Hennepin County, cities of Champlin, Dayton, and then all the cities in Anoka County over toward Blaine and almost down, all the way down to Fridley. So we've really expanded our reach in western Anoka County. A little bit about groundwater. Groundwater is essential to all of us. Here in Anoka County and northern Hennepin County, we all use groundwater as our sole water supply, either through our city water supplies or our private wells. Groundwater is also used for irrigation of crops and lawns, and is pumped out in some areas to control contamination. So there's a lot of different things that we use groundwater for. Because groundwater is also part of the natural system of water recirculation in the environment, when we remove more than naturally is recharged, depletion occurs. That's the case now. So we're actually seeing a lowering of groundwater elevations, and the resulting lowering of some surface water bodies as the whole system goes down. The severe drop in water level in White Bear Lake has been in the news in the past few years. They've done a number of studies there that show that this drop is due to lowered groundwater levels. The groundwater that feeds and supports White Bear Lake has dropped, so the water level in that lake has dropped as well. In response to that very public and seeable phenomenon, the legislature and state agencies have taken action to reduce the depletion and to allow water levels to rebound. Some of the things that are happening is the Department of Natural Resources tightening up controls on water appropriators. They have stricter reviews of water appropriation permits. They are ensuring that permits are obtained and followed with better enforcement. Also, cities are required to put in place plans for municipal water use reduction, and the governor has the authority now to declare a critical groundwater deficiency and order further mandatory reductions. So we are taking some steps now that will address it in the future, but I think there's a whole lot more that we need to know about and think about as cities move ahead in planning. Another thing that's happened is 3 areas of special groundwater concern were established by the legislature. One of these affects us. This is called the North and East Metro Groundwater Management Area. This is centered around the problems of White Bear Lake and includes several Anoka County cities, including Blaine, Columbus, Fridley, Spring Lake Park, and more. They have a plan that they've drafted now to address this. There's going to be a public meeting on that plan on February 26th. This meeting will be at the Blaine Public Works Facility from 6:30 to 8:30. So now is a good time to learn about this topic through this meeting and to go online and find that plan and then show up and make comments if you're interested. And I will put this information. Our league has a Facebook page, so if you look us up on Facebook, League of Women Voters ABC, you'll find us, and you can find a link there to the information about the meeting. Locally, also, our Anoka Conservation District is working with DNR and the Minnesota Geologic Survey to develop a detailed groundwater atlas. This atlas is expected to be completed in the next year. This atlas will provide our local cities with excellent information on groundwater availability and vulnerability, and it'd be a fantastic resource for our cities to use as they plan development and work on conservation. So with us tonight are 2 speakers. We have, at my far left, Bart Burnett. Bart's with the Anoka County Community Health and Environmental Services. He's an environmental health specialist. And Bart has been working on the county's water resource plan. And he also administers a website called Know the Flow, which I hope he'll talk about some here tonight. And then also with us is Lanya Ross. Lanya is with the Metropolitan Council. She's a certified geologist.
I am.
She is. And she is working on water supply planning as part of the Metropolitan Council's 2020? No.
2030 and
20
2040 plan now.
Okay, yeah.
So Thrive 2040.
Okay. So ever looking ahead.
Yes.
So they will share their information, and then we're going to take questions from the audience. Those questions are going to come forward on cards, so we'll take a little break. We'll get the questions up here, and then we'll read them to the speakers so that they can get put on the spot, and we'll test their knowledge. Thank you for being with us tonight, and with this, I'll let Bart get started.
Thank you, Gretchen. My name is Bart Biernat. I'm an environmental health specialist with Anoka County Community Health and Environmental Services Department. Anoka County has started in addressing water issues within the county at about the same time that most of the metro counties in 1980 and 88 and 89, following a drought and following the passage of the Minnesota Statute Groundwater Protection Act of 1989. And as a result of that, counties were encouraged to prepare groundwater protection plans within the metro area. Anoka County looked at the options that we had, and we were speaking to our cities and to our watershed organizations. And instead of going forward with a plan, we went forward with a report and an assessment of the needs that Anoka County needs before we were to go into the formal planning process. As a result of the activities over the years since 1989, we have performed a number of activities where we have assessed groundwater, tritium values in groundwater, the vulnerability of the groundwater as a result of the testing. A number of tests have taken place in addition to that. We had published a groundwater needs assessment, and we were starting to speak to our cities about what we should do as a part of this assessment. We heard from the watersheds and cities about ideas how to move forward. One of the ideas that came forward, which struck me as a surprise, is that a number of the cities wanted to work together to protect their drinking water source, the groundwater source for their city wells. And as a result of that, we formed a groundwater protection, a wellhead protection group of cities that we're addressing our groundwater protection as together as a group. I'll go forward in that a little bit later. But the report that we finished was followed by additional reports, and there is a lot of talk about counties and groundwater. And in our next report that we had published in 2009, we renamed it, instead of a groundwater report, a water resources report. The result of that is that we found that trying to separate groundwater from surface water didn't make a lot of sense, especially since at some time after that, White Bear Lake was falling as a result of groundwater pumping. So there was a connection between surface water and groundwater, our surface water resources. So we started to, we went forward with a report on water resources county-wide. That report was followed up 5 years later, because now our process for assessing water resources is based also on our community health assessments that we do on a 5-year basis. So we have wrapped that report and that issue into an assessment every 5 years. We have finished our last assessment in 2014, and we will be reassessing again in 2019. And we're going to see where we are then and how we are moving forward and where we are in 2019. That is how we will continue to track that. I wanted to go into the report a little bit. The report is also published and placed on the county's website. If you go to our county website and look our department, our public health department up on the website, it is on the front page of our department website, and you can have a look at the report. The report is in 5 sections. The first chapter of the report, we go into the authority and responsibility. One of the things that we want to emphasize as we looked at that is that we are talking about surface water and groundwater. These are considered in the statute the waters of the state of Minnesota. So to address these issues, we would have to go and work with the state to address the water pumping, the over pumping. So we found that ourselves in a position where we want to work with the state to make sure that our water resources are maintained and are sustainable by working with those organizations that actually track and follow our water resources. Also, we have the second chapter is development and demographics. That's where we looked into how is Anoka County growing, how is our water use growing, what is the needs for the future for our water resources. And that's more than just population. That is the growth of industrial and chemical use, or pardon me, industrial and commercial use of our water resources as well. With growing business, some businesses need more water to operate their business than others. Also, development addresses the development of land and the covering of land. As Anoka County develops, we have more roads, we have more roofs, parking lots, all that is covered. Anoka County is on a unique geologic formation, the Anoka sand plain. That is a frothy sand that accepts rainwater and snowmelt very quickly. And so it makes it a high recharge value for our area. Rain recharges our groundwater very quickly in our area. So the development also has to address, and we want to look at that as how is that going to be managed so that we are not closing off our groundwater and having everything run off into the collection ponds along the parking lots and go into the creek and down to the river, and that's water that used to recharge the groundwater that is no longer available because of our development. The third chapter is groundwater itself. And groundwater is plentiful, with the largest recharge potential that we have for our Anoka sand plain. But the Anoka sand plain is tricky. Recharge, yes, but surface feature connections surface water features can be affected by pumping, just as the White Bear Lake could be adjusted to, or affected by that as well. In other words, there is a potential for drawing groundwater in from pumping wells, and our sandy soils will allow that water to drop and go into the wells. That's something that is a concern to us. So as we were looking at our report, we wanted to also address that and how we are going to cooperate and find answers to these questions before they are raised for us. Also, the bedrock aquifers that we expect to find originally some time ago, and those are, if you wanted to name, the Prairie du Chien Jordan bedrock is a very good aquifer. It provides a lot of water in the metropolitan area. Unfortunately, that bedrock is not found in northern parts of Anoka County and western metro area. So most of our high development areas have access and can drill wells into the Prairie du Chien Jordan aquifer, and that is good water source. Once you move forward and north in Anoka County, you're not going to encounter that aquifer anymore, and you're going to be drilling wells into sand and gravel aquifers, or perhaps you're going to find some other aquifers as well. I don't want to go into all the names because they change them anyways.
They do. I'll touch on that.
So we know that we have an aquifer that isn't there, that is serviced Fridley. Blaine has part of it. Lionel Lakes has it. But we do not see the Prairie du Chien Jordan that's in Columbus, Ham Lake, East Bethel, those areas that are poised for growth. When they drill wells, they will not be in the same aquifer. That was the old days when people said back in Crystal and in Fridley and in some areas I'm trying to think of, that they don't worry, you just drill into the Prairie du Chien, Jordan, you got water. And it's good water and it provides a lot of water. You can pump at high volumes and it works well. We don't have that type of aquifer in some parts of our county. That's something that we wanted to highlight in our report too. In another chapter, the 4th chapter, we talk about surface water. So we are connecting the groundwater and the surface water as all water resources. And that is where we have gone, but I've seen other counties that have gone in that direction too. A lot of counties have started to look at water governance as a whole. It's not just surface water and not just groundwater, but both of those. It's a water issue. The 5th chapter, water supply. Now this is something that's down my alley because I am in the environmental health unit at the county, and water supply is very important to us. This is an interesting act. If I can just take a little side. Anoka County has got a lot of departments, a lot of units. And inside the county, how we were going to address water issues was forwarded to our Community Health and Environmental Services Department. We were told, look, you're probably the closest to this. Why don't we try to do a little bit broader than a health evaluation of our water resources? Let's just do a broader one. So we were told to think larger than just our silo of our program, that area that we have usually confine ourselves to. Look broader than just that. So as we went into the water supply, we said, yes, that's our area, but we were also looking at how can this water supply be recharged? How will it work? How can we work with other agencies to make sure that we do not run low on water supply, that water supply is not reached the point where we are dewatering groundwater and have the issues that are showing up at White Bear Lake. And you know, it's kind of fun to be able to step outside of your cycle of just your unit, just to look at it a little broader. I had fun with that as we were working on that as our department, because we all see ourselves working inside of silos. And we don't look at the broader picture. And being told, look at the broader picture, look at all the issues, was fun to do. It was enjoyable because I had a chance to work with a lot of different talented people in the county, in the agencies, in the highway department, the parks department, community development, working with them and talking about how we are going to address our community environmental issues and our community development and our natural resources as a whole, whether or not they have anything directly to do with the health of our citizens. Water supply, we looked at the Met Council master water supply as a water supply issue, because the Met Council is addressing this. This is on a regional basis. They have provided a lot of good information for us to draw from. And we are very happy to have them there providing that information. And that's why I'm happy to turn that over to Lanya and let her go further into how that's going to be addressed. We have a task force that we formed as a part of our report and as a part of the issues after we finish the report that we are going to track. That task force is made up of public members, representatives from cities, from the watershed management organizations, Well Driller, the real estate industry, the real estate association, all the various associations that would have something to do with development and water resources and water sustainability. Very happy that we have that. That task force continues, and we are looking for a new chairman. I think that we will find one very soon that will chair that task force. We lost our chairman, but we have a number of people that look good for it, and we're going to fill that position soon. We're going to be continuing on with our task force as we move forward into addressing those issues that are presenting themselves, such as the North and East groundwater management area. We also are looking at coordinating water management as we have in the previous report. Water management is that silos that I had mentioned before. When Anoka County, as I said, first looked at the issue of water issues, water sustainability, water pollution, we found all these agencies that work within their silos. And they are not communicating with each other as well as we think they should, or as well as they could. By having them communicate and work with each other better, we believe that we can have a better effect on our water resources. So we have in our task force recommendations to improve coordination among agencies, not only within the county, but with the county and the other agencies, the Met Council, the other cities, the watersheds, even the state agencies, to work together. Sometimes you have to ask before you get help. And that's what our task force thought. We need to make that connection with those agencies so that we know that we are getting the best information and the best help. Another task force recommendation is to coordinate water education. I'll go into this a little bit more, but that's where we launched a Know the Flow website to help us to get the information out. We knew that there was a lot, and there is a lot happening in Anoka County in terms of water management and water education. It's just that we need to get it out to people, and that's why we started a website. So I'll go into that a little bit more. That water education, we wanted to utilize the professionals in their fields, the utilities directors, the experts in that area, development partnerships, consider grants, and work in any way that we can. We are into our 17th year of the Children's Water Festival. And we're looking back at that. This is not the county's Children's Water Festival. This is the Metro Area Children's Water Festival, and that festival is put on by the 7 metro counties and the other agencies, the state and the Met Council, as we put that festival on. This is our 17th year. Those kids, when they first went through in 1999, were 5 years old. 17 years later, they're adults now. So we are looking at hopefully getting the payback of all this effort. We have adults that are more educated and are wise as to water conservation issues. Some of us at my age or others are hard to learn new tricks, but you can teach the kids new tricks that are coming through school, and they pick it up and take it with them. So this is our 17th year to do that. Local water sustainability is another task force recommendation, and that is where we establish sustainability work group, and we're looking for that. This is hard. This is where we try to break down or get into those silos for those agencies and try to work with them to put on water conservation, address water conservation together, instead of having each individual city address water conservation and a conservation plan and an education outreach of each city. How can we put that together and make that work so that we all are singing the same tune and it's louder than one singing alone? Let's see here. How much time am I?
You're getting close.
Okay. Okay, water protection is another one. Now, drinking water protection, we've always been involved in. That's my area. That's my bailiwick. So I will just touch on that briefly, that we are interested in supporting, and we have the wellhead protection group of 10 cities that are implementing their protection of their wellhead area. Now that's where, if you look at it in this terms, we have a number of cities throughout the country that have polluted water sources. And when they find that their testing shows pollution in the wells, they ask, where is this coming from? And the wiser people, we've learned from experience, that's a bad time to ask, where's the pollution coming from when it's in the well? Wellhead protection is the process of finding pollution sources close to the well, identifying them, making sure that they're handling their pollution sources, or the source of their pollution well, and that they are not releasing it into the soils, into the groundwater. We also administer a part of the Safe Drinking Water program for the state of Minnesota. We collect water samples and enforce drinking water programs at our licensed establishments, those establishments that are food and lodging establishments that have to make sure that the food's safe that they're serving. The water also has to be safe. So the restaurant that has its own well on its property has to be tested and make sure that they keep the well in good condition. Also provide private well testing. We never want to forget that. Anoka County has about 25% of our county residents are drinking from private wells on their property. And we want to make sure that their water is as safe as the city water. Something that we breathe a little easier about when a city starts up a water system and starts hooking up, there is a professional that's hired that makes sure that that water is safe. It is the homes that have their own well that seem to have more troubles because they're surprised at something like the well casing was cracked because somebody backed the trailer with the boat on in the well, and they tested it and they have bacteria in the well, and they didn't realize it. They did it last year, and they're testing a year later, and they realize, gee, that might be why everyone's getting sick. That is something that we have outreach all the time. So as far as education is concerned, we're trying to work with these education sources, and we want them to work with us because we are constantly telling people, and this is state and the federal government too, please test your well if you have a private well, because you're the only one who's going to manage your water system. You don't have a city utilities director doing that. Also, opportunities for local water management. Now, we address this in terms of 2 points, but there are more points that we could address, and that's why we have a task force to adjust to the changing environment that we're dealing with, because the environment is always changing. I can tell you that from experience. Right now, we are looking at high priority of seal abandoned wells and to cooperate with the DNR in finding these unappropriated water appropriators, these unpermitted water appropriators inside of the county to make sure that they are following the requirements and they're properly appropriating and they're reporting what they're using, the water that they're appropriating, the water that they're pumping out of the ground, or they're using from a surface water source. So we want to make sure that we work with those. So that's 2 areas that we're working for with the task force. One of the opportunities that the task force identified. How much time do I have left, Gretchen? All right, I'll touch on just one last item, and that is the Know the Flow website. We had launched that website 2.5 years ago. Prior to that, we did have a website at the county in which we launched it with the county logo, and it was under the banner of the county that this is our website, and we were wanting to work with the cities and the other agencies in their education outreach. And they responded, gee, we don't like the county banner over the top of everything in our program. And we were able to work with launching a new website that was not co.anoka.mn.us/water. It's knowtheflow, knowtheflow.us. If you go to that website, you will not find the county banner, you will not find city, it's just a theme website. It is not an organization's website. We are outside the silo of this is us, this is ours, this belongs to us, don't touch it. This is a website where inside Anoka County, this is the focus of this. If there's something going on with water, we want people to know it. So when the city has their stormwater pollution prevention education meeting, we will post it on Know the Flow. If it's anything to do with water or education in general in environmental issues, it will be posted on that website. And that is one of the ways we are getting our outreach out to those individuals in our county. And it really, I'm glad that we are able to do something like that, because I have heard a number of times nothing's happening in Anoka County to deal with all these water issues. So I encourage people who have not seen the Know the Flow website to go on. The calendar is full of activities. We have watershed meetings at watershed districts and watershed management organizations practically every month, twice a month for our watershed districts. We have activities that are happening in the metro area that have significance to Anoka County. We post them here. This meeting, because it is based on water, deals with water, is on Know the Flow website to encourage people to come and learn more about water. And I'll stop at that.
Okay. Thanks, Bart. Lanya?
Now I have to follow that. So my name is Lanya Ross, and I work with the Metropolitan Council, and I've been with them for about 8 years, and I was hired when the Minnesota legislature charged the Metropolitan Council with engaging in water supply planning activities, so maintaining and creating a base of technical information, providing some recommendations about funding and some other issues, and also with creating a master water supply plan for the 7-county metropolitan area. And so that was a new function for the Metropolitan Council. I mean, we've always had a role in water supply protection before that. For decades, we've done research, we've been engaged in planning as it relates to water supply planning, but this was a very specific role for us. And so that's when I joined the council, and so I've been working on this issue ever since. We've done a lot of outreach over the years, and so in 2010, we actually did develop and adopt a master water supply plan for the metropolitan area. And that's actually a joint plan with the Metropolitan Council and the DNR. The DNR approved that plan. Since then, the Clean Water, Land, and Legacy Amendment was passed. So there is an amazing amount of research and money focused on a lot of water issues, and so some just fantastic information has been collected. We also had a census in 2010, which kicks off the update of the regional development framework, is one way it's called. It's now called Thrive MSP 2040. So we've gone through this process to look at what is our population, what are our jobs going to be in 2040, and what is our vision for what the region is going to look like in 2040. And so that was, that Thrive MSP 2040 was adopted in May. And that then spurred the update of all of our regional policies. So we've been in the process of updating our water supply and other water resource policies, and that plan is actually out for public review right now. So if you are interested and haven't commented on that, I encourage you to look at that plan. It's posted on our website, Metropolitan Council. If you Google Metropolitan Council Water Resources Policy Plan, you should get to it. We actually have some public meetings this week on Thursday and then next week, and so I don't have the specific details, I apologize, but I will share them. So if you're interested in attending, I encourage you to do that. Those policies then and the strategies are what we are going to be implementing and what we're going to be focusing on. So that then is going to trigger the update of the master water supply plan, which is what I've been working on doing. So that's a lot of plans, I know. But the point is that at the end of this year and going into early next year, the local comprehensive planning process is going to kick off. So all of the local planning begins, and we have this really great opportunity now. This is the first time we have this regional look at water supply issues, and we can have that information before we start to do all of the local planning. Before, water supply, not in all cases by any means, but often was done sort of after the fact. We know we're going to grow by this much, we think we're going to get this many businesses in, and then we'll drill wells to provide them water. But we want to integrate that a little bit better than we have been. And one of the big reasons why is because our forecasts predict about between 800 and 900,000 more people in the 7-county metropolitan area by 2040. And that's a big number, and I have a hard time visualizing what that means for our systems. When you think about, roads and wastewater and parks and streets and sidewalks, what does that mean? That would be the equivalent of adding another Minneapolis, another St. Paul, Duluth, and St. Cloud, all inside the 7-county metropolitan area. So we want to make sure that we're planning well for this population. 2040, sorry. Yeah, so that's a big task. And with the I-94 corridor and going up in this direction, a lot of that growth is going to be coming out this way. So that's what we're looking with and what we're struggling with. And so how are we going to get water to all of these people and all of the businesses and jobs associated with them? If we continue using the sources that we're using now, that's probably going to come from groundwater. Back in the day, in the 20s, 30s, 40s, most of the water for the region was supplied by the river, Mississippi River, flowing not far from here. because Minneapolis and St. Paul were the big users. They had intakes in the river, and so then they would sell to some of their neighbors, and that's where the majority of the population was. In about the 70s and or 1970s and 80s, that flip-flopped because we had the growth of the interstate system. We had the suburbs growing further out and away from those core cities. Groundwater, the Prairie du Chien Jordan Aquifer was abundant. That made the most sense. So now we are in a region that is predominantly supplied by groundwater. And all of the growth, really the big growth, is happening on a lot is being put on a lot of those aquifers. So if you're interested in knowing more about those aquifers, I am going to build off of comments you made. And they're changing names. I did bring along a couple of copies of the Groundwater Digest. And just to give people a sense of what the different groundwater systems, groundwater aquifers are, there is a list at the back that describes them. So the Franconia Ironton Galesville Aquifer was renamed recently to the Tunnel City Wanawak, to everybody's confusion, and so.
But I
we have a handy-dandy reference for that.
And I think that's also on Know the Flow, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes, Lanya sent it to us. We have it posted.
So thank you for that. It's as if there wasn't enough to try to keep track of. We're changing names. Back to this groundwater. So we're using groundwater more and more. As Bart pointed out, groundwater is not its own isolated pot of water. It's connected to a lot of the surface water sources. And so we have situations like White Bear Lake. Years ago, one of the big sort of the poster child for groundwater surface water interaction was Savage Fen down in Savage. So this is an issue that is occurring throughout the metropolitan area. And so that recognition of the connection between surface water and groundwater is an important one. So we have multiple aquifers. We have a variety of groundwater sources in the metropolitan area. So going forward into the future for this 800 to 900,000 people, that's one place we can go for water supply. But it is certainly not the only place. We have the Mississippi River, which has been a source for us for a long time, and has a lot of water flowing. Now there's some risk involved with drought and contamination, but that is a very large source that we have available, not to mention the other two rivers. So we're not running out of water. It's just how do we use it, efficiently. We don't want to pay more than we have to, but we also want to have access, and we want to make sure that we're not putting all our eggs in one basket and then running into problems with just the Mississippi or just the Prairie du Chien Jordan Aquifer. A good balance is what we're really looking for. We also have some other sources. Stormwater reuse is a good source, and some communities are exploring using stormwater to irrigate ball fields or other purposes to kind of not use potable water we're treating to drinking water standards to then put on our lawns. Now, why are we paying and spending the energy and the chemicals to do that and then put it on our lawns? Stormwater reuse, in some cases, is a good alternative. We're also looking at the possibility, and this is a sort of larger, more long-term option, but the idea of reusing wastewater. There are some parts of the metropolitan area where that is a feasible option. We have a new wastewater treatment facility in East Bethel, and the treatment on that plant is a much higher quality than some of our other plants, with the thinking that down the road this might be a good source to use for, again, there's some golf courses in that area, some other places we could use that water. So we have a variety of sources available, and it's just making sure that we're matching them to the right users and coming up with a plan for the region. We also have a lot of opportunity here in our region to use water a little bit more wisely. I think we're the land of 10,000 lakes. We don't necessarily always think that maybe it's something that needs to be conserved, but water conservation is a great tool. There are a lot of communities, a lot of individuals who have done a lot to be more efficient in water use. And I think there's a lot of potential there as well. So we could probably grow quite a bit without increasing our water use if we're wise about it. And that's something as simple as faucet aerators. So this is a 1 gallon per minute faucet aerator, $5 at Home Depot, all the way up to the wastewater reclamation facility. So we have a very broad range of options that we can apply to the issue of water supply planning in the metro. But it's not a one, there isn't going to be one answer for everybody. Our region is very unique. We talk about the Anoka sand plain, and so we have certain resources and certain issues here in Anoka County, and they're very, very different than what you're seeing in Carver County. Carver County, not all of it, but a lot of it is covered in very thick clay. So they really struggle with finding places where they can recharge their aquifers. So there's very diverse geology across the region. We have different aged communities. So some communities are using water very efficiently, but the infrastructure repair needs are really a big issue that they're dealing with. Whereas other communities are still growing and it's brand new infrastructure, but they're trying to add on and grow their system to meet demand. So there's a variety of issues through the region that that we're looking at in our master water supply plan. So we've been doing a lot of different technical studies at the Metropolitan Council. We've done some regional groundwater flow modeling, and that's been a very useful tool for us as we look at if we increase water demand at all of these water users across the region, what's the long-term and cumulative effect of all of that water use on our system? So we can use tools like that to look into the future. What if we continue doing things the way we are now? What do we look like? What if we do things differently? So we can start to evaluate different options with that kind of tool. We've been building some planning tools. So we have just updated our conservation toolbox. And so that is available on our website, Metropolitan Council Conservation Toolbox. If you Google it, you'll find it. And that's got some really good resources for public water supply utilities, for individuals, for businesses, to look at different ways to implement water conservation. We've done a stormwater reuse guide to really look at, say you want to reuse stormwater at some site. Is it feasible or not? It will work some places, it won't work others. So some tools and some checklists to help evaluate if that's feasible and something that can be done. We're actually applying some of that planning right now at a demonstration project in downtown St. Paul. The new Saints Stadium happens to be right next door to our Green Line operations, OMF building, operations maintenance facility. Sorry, the lingo of Met Council. But we have a lot of roof on that OMF. So when the rain is running off of that roof, that's a great resource. So we're actually in the process right now of collecting some of that stormwater runoff from our roof and using it at the stadium next door to see how can we sort of manage some of our stormwater challenges at the same time that we're reducing the use of potable water for things like irrigating the ball field. So that's a very exciting project to see in development, and we're learning a lot in the process there. We've also got a very exciting, actually a couple of projects going. We started up some work with the Minnesota Technical Assistance Program, MNTAP, to look at partnering with industries in the metropolitan area who use groundwater to see if they have, what are the barriers and opportunities for water conservation? And what are some of the benefits to conserving water? And so we've gotten some really good results there. And I'm hoping we're in the process of, Gedney Pickle is one of the companies that we worked with, and so they've been very happy to share some of the work that they've done. They had an intern come in and look at their processes and look at water conservation, and so I'm excited to have them come and speak too. We're having a Minnesota Groundwater Association meeting in April, and so have them come and talk about some of the work there. But other industries like that throughout the metropolitan area. There's some really wonderful opportunities for water conservation and some really impressive cost and energy savings to conserving water at some of these industries. So that's an opportunity. So we're expanding that program as well. So we're doing a lot of this technical work, some of these modeling projects, and putting that all together with our policies, our water supply policies and strategies into the master water supply plan. And so we're drafting that right now, And that's going to be coming out for public review too. We've been working with public utilities, staff, planning staff at the communities, doing some outreach. So we're updating that master water supply plan as well. And that provides guidance to communities in the local comprehensive plan update process. So, for your community, here are some of, from the regional perspective, here are some of the water supply issues you might be facing and should be thinking about as you're developing plans. And here are some recommended steps to take. Water supply is not a system. It's not a regional system the way the wastewater, our wastewater treatment plants and our wastewater system is, like our parks. Private well owners are responsible for their own private water supplies. Public water utilities, the cities, are responsible for their own water supplies. They operate and they know their systems. We're here to provide information, provide some guidance, and help collaborate, provide some grants like MinTap to look at, can we reduce water use by industries within your community? That type of support role is what we are doing. We've been working with some sub-regional work groups in different parts of the metropolitan area, so we are involved in the North and East Metro Groundwater Management area. We've done some projects there. We just released a study looking at some different water supply alternatives, kind of what would be the costs of, if St. Paul were to supply water to some of these communities, what might be the benefits, what would be some of the costs, looking at just some different configurations. I think we sometimes get, there's been, okay, I'm too late, I'm too tired here. These are not plans that we're putting out there. This is really just looking at what are some of the big questions in some of these areas, and can we provide some information to help answer them? And so I just kind of wanted to make that clear. But we're doing that kind of work in other parts of the metropolitan area too. So in the South and East Metro, sort of Dakota County, Northern Dakota County, they're interested in knowing some of that information, so we've got some work going on there. We're trying to get some work going in the Northwest Metro in this area too, because there are some issues with surface water, groundwater connections. You're limited. The Priority Shane Jordan Aquifer isn't present for all communities here. So can we provide some information about some of the different options, what their costs are, what type of cooperation is needed to achieve them? And so that's another big part of the work that we're doing. Apparently I could go on and on because I'm very interested in my job. There's a lot going on now. But maybe the best thing is just to stop. And if you have questions.
We have lots of questions. We're going to take a short break,
okay,
and then we'll come back for questions. Thank you. Okay, welcome back. Now we're here for the question portion of our meeting, and I've got a number of questions, so hope you guys are ready. First one. At one time, the city of Ramsey was asked to consider using river water for drinking water rather than just well water. What happened with that?
It's my understanding that that's still being considered. I don't know the details of exactly where it's at, but that type of project is the type of project that our sub-regional work groups would be considering and looking at some of the costs and the feasibility of it. So that may be explored as some of that work.
I think that when we think about using surface water resources too, there's a lot more treatment required, and so the cost is higher.
Yes,
and
definitely.
so that's a factor that has to get weighed in.
Yep, that would definitely be a big part of that analysis.
Another question. What incentives will cities have to conserve our groundwater supply in the future?
I think that's your turn.
It is. Thank you. Well, the incentives will be a part of the city's comprehensive planning and their water resources plan. The cities have to address conservation besides the fact that they are interested in making sure that they are on the right side of this argument about water conservation. This is a hot topic now, and a lot of cities have expressed interest in being on the right side of this issue. Even though there's another side to that when it comes to cities. Cities sell water. They're in the sales business, in a sense. They're a utility. So when they sell more water, they bill more and they generate more revenue. So the cities are looking at their options, how they can maintain their city system and their utility in good condition and still go out and have water conservation as a main part of what they want to be on the right side of this issue. They want to be on top of it. That's typical for Minnesota. We always look to the future about the next turn in the road and be prepared for it.
Another element of that is that cities save, we've seen cities beginning to implement what they call conservation pricing, where the more you use, the more you pay for each increment of water.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so that helps them to balance the cost and the benefit. So,
Yeah, I know there's been a lot of, as the water conservation rate structure requirement kicked in, a lot of communities have been re-looking at their rate structures and having to adjust them to allow for water conservation. So there's been some interesting changes over time.
yeah. For each of you, what are the top 3 ideas for what citizens and other local governments can do to conserve groundwater?
3 ideas.
Well, I like what just came out from the Met Council in their water conservation toolbox. Are you still calling it a toolbox?
We are. Conservation Toolbox.
I think that's
You can look it
a
up.
great source. I asked that that be posted on the Know the Flow website, and it is there too. It's on the front in water conservation, but it's also in the tools for residents. It's been placed there too. There are really good ideas, and it addresses individual activities that you're involved with: brushing your teeth, showers, aerators on your water faucet. Those 3 are one of the top 3 as far as I'm concerned. I'm the old school, but I'm learning because I have to lecture on this. I'm learning from my lectures that really I don't need to run the water while I'm brushing my teeth. And when I calculate that I'm running at about 4.5 gallons per minute that my faucet runs, and it takes me 2 minutes, that's a real waste of 9 gallons of water that I don't necessarily need to run down the drain. And that is why part of the conservation pricing, it's a good idea, but you know, that water is so cheap, even at the conservation pricing, I'll pay it. It's not that won't stop me. It's got to be that I want to be a part of the solution in water conservation instead of part of the problem. One of the many that run their water and waste 9 gallons twice a day brushing my teeth.
Do you have anything to add?
I think that the top one for me is looking at outdoor water use. If you look at some of the water use signals we've had over the past several years, you see that while a lot of cities are maybe using no more water or even less water indoors, our summer water use in a lot of cities has gone up. There's that summer peak. I don't know if it's keeping up with the Joneses for the green lawn or more landscaping, but we definitely are seeing more summer water use. And so I think things that we can do to reduce that, this would be, some of the, just reduce the amount of turf area or area you're watering. So if you're a little addicted to gardening like me, exploring some of the native plantings, or if it is, really looking at making sure your irrigation system is functioning properly, that it's not running in the rain. There's a lot more irrigation systems installed now than there used to be, so just making sure we're managing them appropriately. And then when it comes to indoor water use, I think a woman that I worked with in water conservation issues in White Bear Lake said, what are the permanent fixes? Change a faucet aerator, install a water sense shower head or appliance. I mean, those are things you just do it once, and it makes a huge difference on your water use. And so those are just those permanent changes that you can make.
Another thing that affects, especially if you have a septic system, you're going to want to make sure that you have no trickling toilets, drippy faucets,
Yes.
and things like that.
Yes, and toilets are an important one. You can do this. Drop a food color in the tank. Wait 10 minutes. If that color makes it into the bowl, fix your leak. And it's, yeah. Most of the fixes are fairly inexpensive. I know this when I bought my house, I had to do this, and so I've gone through this. It's a fun little engineering project, or not as expensive as I was worried about.
Another question then, what chemicals are tested for in our public drinking water supplies?
The public water supplies are tested, the city water supplies that are considered community public water supplies are tested for practically everything. They are tested on a regular basis for the bacteria issues. Depending on the size of the system, how often they're tested, may be weekly or several times a week, or to monthly for our community water supplies, depending on how many people are served by that water supply. But the additional testing, the radium that you hear about, that's that arsenic testing, the solvents, the volatile organic chemicals, those are all tested on a regular basis of the community water supplies. The other water supplies that are lesser sized, they're tested at less frequently for the exotic chemicals that you might find. They're tested regularly for drinking water safety for bacteria, nitrate, nitrogen, and they are tested once for some of the issues that are associated with plumbing, copper, those sorts of testing. So it's monitored, but it's monitored on a scale on how many people are exposed to the water, how much we're going to put into the testing. And I'm speaking about a school, I'm speaking about the state health department that oversees the testing and determines who gets tested to what degree.
And the water I drink in St. Paul gets tested even more frequently, being a surface water source. And I'd like to point out, this is a call for all of you. You're in the watershed above my intake, so please take care of my drinking water supply.
Well, the other part of this too is private wells, and the county does offer a program of private well testing. So if you have a private well, you should certainly get it tested. You won't be testing for that vast suite of things that these other water supplies are, but it's important that you look at the sanitary quality of your water, at least as a basic kind of thing.
Also, when we have people testing for their private well water supply, a lot of times we have a chance to do a little education too. Because if people are saying, I want to test for everything, if they have a 200-foot deep well, and they should be less concerned about pollution sources around them than if they had a 48-foot deep well. Because as you go deeper, you find that you encounter more of what they call aquitars, or confining material, and water doesn't flow through clay. It doesn't flow through shale like it does sand or sandstone or gravel. So that's a way we can educate people about, gee whiz, I don't know, I hear all about that wells aren't safe. Maybe your well is or is not. You should know more about your well to decide whether or not you want to test more often.
Well, that's it for time right now. So I want to thank our guests and thank QCTV and thank our audience. And so long.
Thank you.